Just bear with me. I'm sure we'll get through it. My sister and I have talked on the phone every day for the past 3.5 years. At first she would call in the morning and then phone back until she was certain I was out of bed. I'm not entirely sure how she would know, but she could tell. She's kind and she's tough. Get out of bed, she would say. It's hell, but it could be worse. You don't want to lose your home. You don't want to lose your studio. Get to work. I feel like this is a brave thing to do, to kick off a talk with death. But what I'm proposing with this project can only happen because someone wonderful has died. I'm also a spontaneous crier. It can only exist because Steve Kirby has died, and it can only exist because I'm still alive. I met Steve in the local library where I worked when I was in my 20s. At the time, I was chasing naked people out of fine art picture books, with no other purpose than a simple love of their bumpiness. The older women I worked with told me that he was a real painter, painted real paintings, and I rolled my fake artist eyes. Then one day he was wandering in non-fiction, and I asked him what he was looking for, and in his quiet, long-limbed way of speaking, which was kind of like dancing, he said happiness. And I wondered, is it here in these books? Years later, when Steve first noticed the bump on his neck, he took my fingers and asked what I thought it was. I think it's cancer, I said, with no medical treatment. Whew. Steve was diagnosed in 2008 and died in 2010. You need to take your time in my studio, he said. There are answers there. Don't rush it. You will find that they trust you. Many people don't have the chance to have these conversations. And I sometimes wish that we hadn't, because they're big words to sit with and really big words to carry around with you. By the end of the first year, I had barely touched the surface. And in the second year, began cataloguing the works that were in fact finished. It's much easier to know what to do with finished works. You clean them off, you photograph them, and you set them out into the world because people want them. They're finished. They were made to be lived with. But what do you do when you're left with hundreds of unfinished paintings? When the ones that you're left with were created as a beginning and not as an ending. When they stumble around the studio like half-finished sentences, waiting to say something extraordinary. When I run my fingers over their bumpy surfaces, I can feel the man that I loved and hear our conversations. It's in these painterly wanderings that I find the great dance of art that museums and galleries can't put a value to, because these paintings were meant to be played with. Back in 2006, Steve wrote to the Visual Arts Board requesting funds to create a 22.5-metre painting. It would be made in the same ways as the works that were exhibited at Lake Gallery in 2003 and 2004. Small tiles cut from the paintings that he made. This experimental way of painting opened up infinite possibilities. He stuck paintbrushes in drills, blew colour with air guns, pushed paint through holes. He crushed it, blended it, mixed it, pushed it. And from these boards he would cut these pieces. But the application wasn't successful, and without these funds the work was not financially viable. We problem solved that work from every angle, but always arrived at the same conclusion. It was too big, too hard to move, too impossible. He would make it later, he said, maybe just for us. And the hundreds of boards and thousands of pieces have been sitting quietly in the studio since then. I finally began to consider that there was no answer. Then in late 2013, I saw Deborah Kelly was looking for collages for collaborative work as part of the 19th Biennale of Sydney. For months we sat at large tables quietly cutting from Deborah's stash of obsolete reference material. Then we stood together, slowly beginning to move these pieces around, our life-sized, naked people. Intimate portraits emerged. The pieces fell into place. The work can be made, but it will need to be able to continually reinvent itself, never finished, never looking the same way twice. It will have no beginning and it will have no end. Instead of a fixed piece installed in the gallery, I am suggesting the gallery walls themselves be lined with magnetic sheeting and a small magnet attached to the back of each tile. The work will still be made of thousands of tiles, but now each tile has the ability to be moved. You'll be able to reach out and touch the tiles, pluck them off the wall, hold them, trace their bumpiness. The work will surround you, move around you. You'll experience it firsthand, that dance between choice and chance. The work I am suggesting will no longer just be Steve's, and it won't be mine. The project is not about creating a finished work from the hands of a single artist. It will be a new work created by many hands. The existing tiles will be carefully sanded, the experimental boards cut, and the work made over and over and over. The past few months have been spent slowly pulling the details together, speaking with Steve's daughter, his colleagues, family and friends, talking through the dangers and the delights of such work. For there are plenty of both. And once again thinking how one might fund a work of this scale. But I no longer think it's impossible. Of course, this is not the whole story, but that is the way with stories. We make them what we will. It's a way of explaining the universe and leaving the universe unexplained. It's a way of keeping it alive, not boxing it into time. Everyone who has a story tells it differently.